So yeah, about Jaden Daniels, yeah, I think he might be him. Anyways, welcome to week 3 NFL reactions. Man, we had a crazy week again. Like, back-to-back weeks. It's almost unheard of at this point. Shocking outcomes, shocking quarterbacks that kind of resurrected their careers, and a lot more coming up in the next couple of, well, almost half an hour. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the red subscribe button. Go ahead and do it. Just do it. Go ahead. Hit the like button, hit the bell so you don't miss a video, and let's get straight to it. Let's go! So first things first, we had the Thursday night game when the Jets almost blanked the New England Patriots in MetLife. This is more about the Patriots. Their fun has ended, unfortunately, in New York. They had a good time. They played well in the Bengals and Seahawks game, but I was right when their magic would run out against the New York Jets defense. Jets defense just better than Seattle's defense, I will say that. As far as the Patriots, they still played efficient football with Jacoby Brissett, and they actually put in Drake May for a couple of snaps, so that's pretty good for him. Unfortunately, the rushing game did get stalled out. The main guy on offense was Demario Douglas, being him once again with 7 catches and 69 yards. And as far as the Jets, Aaron Rodgers had a solid game again with 281 yards, 27-35, and 2 touchdowns. Rushing game, Brandon Allen is still pretty decent, and Breece Hall had himself a touchdown and 54 yards. And then Tyler Conklin led the receiving corps with 5 catches and 93 yards, with Alan Lazard and Garrett Wilson getting touchdowns for the Jets. As far as defense, the Patriots defense got there twice with Josh Uche and Dietrich Wise getting to the quarterback. Raekwon McMillan and Jelani Tavai had some solid games. Jonathan Jones, Keon White is still him. He had 2 quarterback hits and 6 tackles out there as well. Jonathan Jones had a forced fumble. And Anthony Jennings also had 6 tackles. They just really couldn't get any turnovers against New York Jets. And as far as the Jets, they sat the 2 quarterbacks. Jacoby Brissett was sacked 5 times, and Drake May was sacked twice. Wynn McDonald had 2 sacks. Quinnen Williams, Kinlaw, and Clark had a sack. Tat McKinley had a half a sack. So did Leonard Taylor. Solomon Thomas, I think he's resurrected his career as a defensive lineman. And Michael Clemens had a half a sack, with Quincy Williams and Chuck Clark having the most tackles on the team with 8 and 7. Will McDonald also had 4 quarterback hits. Chuck Clark had a heck of a game. He also had a tackle for loss, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Yeah. Jets was just looking good on offense, and Patriots just could not answer. Kicking off the Sunday afternoon slate at 1 o'clock was the New York Giants coming into Cleveland and stunning the Cleveland Browns. Oh boy. Deshaun Watson looks like hot ass, and man, Daniel Jones, at least he has a target to throw to finally. Like, people were shitting on Daniel Jones every single time he touched a football, but now they see he needed a weapon more than anything, and he's got one. In terms of the Giants, Daniel Jones only got sacked twice, so his offensive line was actually pretty solid. 236 yards, 24-34, and 2 touchdowns from the man. Malik Neighbors, 8 catches, 78 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The main source of the passing game, Hunter Robinson, also had 7 catches, 61 yards for the second most targets by a Giants receiver. And then Devin Singletary had the only other touchdown with 16 carries, 65 yards, and a score. And as for the Browns, it can't get any more laughable. Deshaun Watson had 200 yards, 2 touchdowns on 21 of 37. And then, yeah, he fumbled twice. Fortunately, this thing won't stay there. There we go. Rushing game shut down, but then Amari Cooper has finally woken up. 7 catches, 86 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was really the main component for the Browns all game, and Giants were just able to outlast Cleveland. Oh yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention. Deshaun Watson got sacked 8 times. 8. 2 pass deflections and a sack for Brian Burns and a forced fumble. 2 fumble recoveries for Ojulari and Chapman. Dexter Lawrence had 2 sacks. Bobby Okereke had a really nice game. McFadden had one as well. So did Cordell Flott, who came out of nowhere with a tackle for loss. And The Giants were able to get to the quarterback. The Browns' offensive line is in shambles right now. And as far as the Browns, Zadarius Smith and Okoronkwo had sacks. Denzel Ward had 2 pass deflections. He's still a pretty decent corner. Shelby Harris and Greg Newsome having the other pass deflections. Grant Delpit had a nice game. Owusu Koromoa had solid games, such as Jordan Hicks, Martin Emerson, Shelby Harris, and also Ronnie Hickman. 2 forced fumbles by Harris and Tony Brown, with Hickman getting that recovery. And Cleveland couldn't get to the quarterback. Giants' pass rush is criminally underrated, I will say. Yeah, they really got to the quarterback as much as people would not expect them to do, and it helped the offense of the Giants get enough points to get the win. Up next, we had the Chicago Bears traveling to Lucas Oil Stadium to play the Indianapolis Colts. Let me just say, this game was an absolute shit show. I mean, come on, both of these quarterbacks sucked ass. I mean, come on, man. Caleb Williams, sure, he had a great fourth quarter, but yeah, no touchdowns, 2 picks. And he got sacked 4 times, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks at the end of the game with under 400 yards. I mean, he's shown flashes, but not much anything special. Rushing game obviously got shut down. And then, of course, we have Roman Dunze having his breakout game with 6 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown. DJ Moore had a good game on the receiving end as well with 8 catches, 78 yards. And then Cole Kmet, have a day, dude. 10 catches, 97 yards, and a score. And let me just say, Anthony Richardson looked even worse. Like 167 yards, 50% completion percentage, and then 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. Ugh, jeez. Jonathan Taylor was the only reason why the Colts won. 110 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Nobody in the receiving corps much to really show for, except maybe Michael Pittman with 4 catches, 36 yards. But yeah, Jonathan Taylor completely carried that entire offense. Oh yeah, and also Trey Sermon had a touchdown, so there's that as well. The Bears had 2 interceptions by Tremaine Edmonds and Jalen Johnson, with Montez Sweat having a sack. And DeMarcus Walker, Jaquan Brisker, Kevin Byard, and Tyreek Stevenson having some solid games. Only 3 quarterback hits, only 1 sack. The Bears defense, they got turnovers, they got sacks, but they just didn't do enough because Caleb Williams just completely sold the bag, and so did their play calling on that 4th down that could have won them the game. They ran sideways, and they had a terrible offensive line still. How does Caleb Williams get 363 yards with that bad of an offensive line? I guess he had a lot more time to make quick decisions and then throw the ball, and the receivers just catch it. I don't know. And then for the Colts defense, Jalen Jones having 2 interceptions, having a great game. Sire Franklin, EJ Speed, and Nick Cross having elite games as well, tackling the ball carriers. And then a couple guys had some sacks. Caleb Williams was sacked 4 times. Kenny Moore, Kwity Paye had to have a sack. Laiatu Latu got injured in this game, and he also had a sack. Taven Bryant and Adebawore had a sack also. There was also a forced fumble by Latu that was recovered by Grover Stewart. Yeah, the Colts just outlasted the Bears. It was not a great game at all. It was just which defense was going to show up, and it sure was the Colts who showed up even more than the Bears defense did. Both defenses played well, but it was just the Colts that got the W. Up next, we have the Minnesota Vikings breaking Houston Texans to US Bank Stadium and absolutely destroying their souls 34-7. I have one question for Houston. Who the hell let Sam Darnold cook? I mean, first of all, Houston looked absolutely awful against Minnesota, the entire team. CJ Stroud had obviously one of his worst games in his career. 215 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. He got sacked 4 times as well. Davis Mills came in the game as well. I think CJ Stroud might have gotten hurt as well. So, yeah, total of 5 times that the Vikings got to the quarterback. Rushing game was shut down. And Stephon Diggs having 10 catches, 94 yards. The receiving touchdown was by Cam Akers, the only touchdown on offense. Tank Dell having 5 catches, 62 yards, so it's nice to see that he's back. And then Nico Collins still doing what he does best, getting receiving yards and making the most out of the touches he gets. But then, oh my gosh, Sam Darnold, 17 of 28, 181 yards, and 4 touchdowns, no picks. He got sacked 4 times. Aaron Jones carried the burden on the rushing game, 19 carries, 102 yards, including a 39-yard scamper, and he added a receiving touchdown to his total. And when you have a guy like Justin Jefferson getting 6 catches, 81 yards, and a touchdown, I bet any quarterback can thrive well in that offense. I know Pro Football Reference is doing some little bug thing that it keeps going back and forth. Like, just ignore that. Just take my words from it. Don't listen to the Pro Football Reference just shaking around, being a nuisance in my life. And defensively, Tim Settle had 2 sacks, Barnett and Will Anderson having sacks. So it's nice to see Will Anderson wasn't that much of a waste of a pick. And then Azeez El-Shaair, the guy who punched the Bears defender and didn't get ejected for it. Yeah, he had a pretty solid game, 2 tackles for loss. Jalen Peter had a good one. Henry Tutu even had a solid game with Jimmy Ward. Forced fumble by Barnett. And yeah, Houston, their defense did its job, but only for so long because the offense kept getting the ball away to Minnesota. And my goodness, this was a breakout game for that Minnesota defense. Cameron Bynum and Cobb Hale getting picks on C.J. Stroud. Jonathan Greenard having 3 sacks in the game. Andrew Van Ginkel and Redmond having sacks as well. Harrison Smith had a solid game. Josh Metellus also had a solid game. 3 quarterback hits for Greenard, obviously, and 3 tackles for loss because he did get 3 sacks. Man, the Vikings defense just completely ate up the Houston Texans for lunch in there. Man, great game, Vikings, I will say. I'm still not a believer in Sam Darnold, but man, you guys proved me wrong this week. I was one of the unfortunate people to pick the Texans, and I got humbled quick. So, good on you, Vikings. Up next, we had the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the New Orleans Saints in Caesars Superdome, and man, this game was an absolute joke. This game was a disgrace to football. I mean, the first half was 3-0, and then the fourth quarter, the teams want to put up some more points. Come on, this was an absolute travesty to anyone who watched this game. And let me just say, Jalen Hurts looks like hot ass. I mean, 311 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick, and he got sacked 4 times. Saquon had a really good game with 147 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. But man, Dallas Goedert really shot everybody. 10 catches, 170 yards. He and Devontae Smith combined for almost 250 yards on 17 catches. That was the entire offense on the passing game. Saquon Barkley just did the rest. And somehow Derek Carr looked even worse with 14 of 25 for 142 yards, a touchdown, a pick. His offensive line protected him well, but Alvin Kamara wasn't as explosive as he was against Dallas. And Chris Olave had a touchdown, but that was pretty much it. I mean, Alvin Kamara had 127 total yards, but it was just not enough to really stop the Eagles from getting yards and getting scores. Obviously, the main caveat of the game was that Reed Blankenship got a pick. Jordan Davis, the 340-pound defensive lineman for Georgia, getting the sack. Zach Bond had a heck of a game. Kobe Dean, C.J. Gunnar-Johnson had a good game. Jalen Carter had 2 tackles for loss. Brandon Graham also had a quarterback hit. The Saints offensive line were protecting well, but just not enough to give Derek Carr any time to throw the ball to his intended receiver that much. He was just missing some of his passes, and this game was just overall hard to watch. And as far as the Saints, I mean, Honey Badger got a interception. Honey Badger is Tyrann Mathieu. Brian Brees is here, and he is here to stay. 2 sacks. Carl Granderson with 1.5 sacks. Alontae Taylor with the other half. Paulson Adebo even had a good game, along with Demario Davis, Will Harris, and Pete Werner. And there's a fumble recovery by Willie Gay. Granderson forced it out. And that was pretty much it for the Saints. I mean, offense has struggled mightily. It just happened to be Saquon Barkley just getting it done for the Eagles, playing hero ball and ultimately succeeding in the end. Up next, we have the Green Bay Packers traveling to Nissan Stadium and to take down the Tennessee Titans 30-14. I hope you're proud of yourself, Titans. You really traded Malik Willis for this just to get your asses kicked? Oh yeah, and by who else? Malik Willis. Yeah, karma is a thing, Tennessee, and you are the unfortunate recipients of that karma. I mean, Malik Willis had a solid game, and he's still playing efficient football. He had 200 yards, a touchdown, 13 of 19. He did get sacked 3 times, but he did run for a touchdown with 73 rushing yards. He had 60 rushing yards in the entire first half alone. They could not stop Malik Willis for anything. And Christian Watson having 2 catches, 67 yards. Emmanuel Wilson having the receiving touchdown is almost unheard of. Jaden Reed having a solid game again. Yeah, just a great game from Malik Willis, and it really showed. As for Titans, yeah, Will Levis, you have become a meme. 2 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions, and you got sacked 8 times with a strip sack. 260 yards, 26 of 34. I mean, you were playing efficient ball too, unless you were throwing turnovers and turned the ball over a total 3 times. Rushing game, once again, absolutely abysmal. Thank goodness for DeAndre Hopkins and Nick Vannett somehow getting touchdowns. DeAndre Hopkins led the receiving corps with 6 catches, 73 yards. And then Tyjae Spears had 4 catches for 54, with Josh Weil getting 4 catches for 43 yards. Man, we had some very interesting leading receivers besides DeAndre Hopkins. Defensively, the 2 interceptions by Jair Alexander. He returned that one for a pick 6. And Xavier McKinney even had an interception. And man, the Green Bay pass rush was just all over Will Levis the entire game. Devontae Wyatt and Preston Smith having 2 sacks apiece. Kingsley and Nabari having 1.5 sacks. Lucas Van Ness having a recovery and a sack. St. McDuffie, Quay Walker, and Andrew Cooper having a half a sack. Later tackles was McDuffie. It was Enagbare who got the forced fumble that Van Ness recovered. They were just eating Will Levis's lunch, and they just could not stop. As far as the Titans defense, they got to the quarterback 3 times, with Kenneth Murray and Jeff Simmons getting to the quarterback. 13 tackles for Ernest Jones, won a game from him. Kenneth Murray even had a solid game with 8 tackles, and so did Quandre Diggs. But yeah, offense just made way too many mistakes. Packers were able to take advantage of them, and they ultimately won in Malik Willis's revenge game. Man, have yourself a night, Malik. You guys are 3-0. Oh, wait, sorry. I forgot you guys lost to Philly and Sao Paulo, but nobody talks about that. I mean, congratulations. You guys are 2-0 without Jordan Love. Up next, we had the LA Chargers traveling to, I'm always going to say Heinz Field. I don't care what anybody says to me. I don't care what anybody says. Traveling to Heinz Field to lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers and Justin Fields. First of all, who let Justin Fields cook? Second of all, why was this game also so dog shit? I mean, Justin Herbert was still playing efficient football, but yeah, 12 of 18, he only attempted 18 passes the entire game because the Steelers were on offense the entire time. The Chargers couldn't get a stop to save their life. Justin Herbert had 12 of 18 for 125 yards and a touchdown. Taylor Heineke had some snaps. They both got sacked a total of 5 times. Rushing game, I knew J.K. Dobbins was going to struggle against the Steelers' rushing defense. And then Quentin Johnston having himself another touchdown, with Lam McConkey also having 44 receiving yards. All the things that could have went wrong with the Chargers, they did. As for Justin Fields, he had 2 total touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 1 through the air, but he also had a pick in the game. Najee Harris having a solid game on the ground with 70 rushing yards. And Calvin Austin, of all people, having a touchdown. Man, that's strange. 55-yard reception along with it, 4 catches. George Pickens also had a solid game with 5 catches for 57. And Freiermuth having 4 catches for 33 yards. Pretty solid game for Pittsburgh's offense. And for the defense, Bud Dupree had an interception. Derwin James, Khalil Mack had sacks. Diane Henley had a good game. Denzel Perriman had a good one. Christian Fulton, Lohai Gilman. They just could not stop Pittsburgh for anything. They couldn't get a single stop. The Pittsburgh offense just stayed on the field for Pittsburgh, and Chargers couldn't do anything about it. Time of possession game clearly belonged to the Steelers, and then 5 sacks for Pittsburgh. T.J. Watt having a sack. Nick Herbig with 2 sacks. Cam Hayward and Landon Roberts also having a sack. Patrick Queen also had a great game. Man, Pittsburgh just was able to move the ball with ease, and Chargers defense just kept letting them do it. Like, didn't even bother to make any adjustments, really. Pittsburgh just completely ran away with this, and Justin Fields looks like a very solid starter. That's not saying much, though. And the final game of the Sunday 1 o'clock slate was the Denver Broncos going to Raymond James Stadium and stunning the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 26-7. Well, the hype train just collapsed, and it collapsed deep into a hole that who knows if they can get out of. I mean, looking at the Broncos offense, like Bo Nix had one of his best games in the first 3 games he's had in his career. 200 passing yards, no turnovers. He even had a rushing touchdown with Tyler Batty leading the team in rushing yards with 70. Same amount as the guy I'll be talking about on the Buccaneers that you see down there. Cortland Sutton, 7 catches, 68 yards. He's finally woken up. And little Jordan Humphrey having 6 catches, 37 yards. I don't even know who that is. And I still don't. So, great job on you, Denver. Man, what a game for y'all. Baker Mayfield unfortunately came back down to earth. 163 yards. He did throw a touchdown to Chris Godwin again. He also threw a pick and got sacked 7 times? What? And then Bucky Irvin having 70 rushing yards. Like I said, Chris Godwin having 6 catches for 53 yards. And I am unfortunately one of the unfortunate people that had to see Mike Evans only have 3 targets again. Like, he's going to be on his way out of Tampa Bay very soon, and I could see why. And on defense, Brandon Jones had the interception. Dondre Tillman had 2 sacks, and then the other sacks were by Zach Allen, Jonathan Cooper, Bonito, Franklin Myers, and Key. Singleton and Jaquan McMillan with Riley Moss had some solid games as well. And Brandon Jones even recovered a fumble that was forced by Moss. Like, the pass rush just completely overwhelmed Baker Mayfield, and Oaks' offensive line just were in shambles the entire game. And, oh man, it was just a tale of 2 teams. Buccaneers fell off. Broncos defense really woke up, and Bo Nix really took advantage of the real situation that the defense had against the Bucs. As far as the Bucs defense goes, no sacks, no turnovers. Well, forced fumble by Levante David and Logan Hall getting recovery, but besides Jamel Dean, Levante David, and Christian Ezian, it wasn't like too much of a big gain for the Bucs defense. Like, Bucs just stayed on the field defensively. They got fatigued, and then Bo Nix was able to put the nails in the coffin to seal a big win. Great job on your first victory, Broncos. Now, can you keep that up? Up next is the start of the 4 o'clock slate of Sunday evening. We had the Carolina Panthers going to Allegiant Stadium and stunning the 1-1, then 1-1 Las Vegas Raiders 36-22. Seriously? How did you go from beating the Ravens last week to now losing to Red Rocket himself and the Carolina Panthers? Like, how does that work, Antonio Pierce? And of course, Bryce Young had to get benched because his confidence was just down the drain. Like, there was nothing in there. And Andy Dalton took over and just completely lit up everybody on that Raiders defense. 26-37, 300 yards, 3 touchdown passes. Chuba Hubbard having a nice game again, having 5 catches for a touchdown, 55 yards, along with 114 rushing yards. And then Deontay Johnson, 122 yards, 8 catches, and a touchdown, with Thielen also having a touchdown. Xavier Legette, their fantasy owners is not looking good at all. And then we had Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell get some snaps. Minshew threw the only interception between the two. Aiden O'Connell had a touchdown, but man, it was just a struggle all around for the Raiders offense, with Alexander Madison getting the only touchdown, but that was it for the rushing game. And then the only real highlights of the receiving corps was Trey Tucker getting 7 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown. Jacoby Myers also had 7 catches, 62 yards, and another score. But man, what a rough game for Las Vegas. As far as the Panthers defense goes, Michael Jackson got the only interception on Gardner Minshew. And then LeBron Ray, Jaden Peavy, and even Jadeveon Clowney had some sacks. Michael Jackson even had 9 tackles. Nick Scott and Shaq Thompson also had a very solid game. Jussie Jewell had 2 pass deflections. Panthers just did their job, and offense did the rest. As far as the Raiders defense goes, Spillane had a sack. They had 2 sacks on the quarterback. And Spillane, Epps, Jet Jones, Luke Masterson, Moehrig, and Hobbs even had some solid games, but it just wasn't enough. The defense was doing their job, and Panthers were just keeping on scoring, and Raiders couldn't do a thing. Nice win, Panthers. You lucked out, though. Raiders, I'm disappointed. You went from beating the Ravens just a week ago to losing to the Panthers. I hope you're proud of yourselves. Up next, we had the Seattle Seahawks breaking the Miami Dolphins to Lumen Field and just shattering every single hope of the Dolphins having a successful season, 24-3. Good God. Not having Tua as your quarterback is really starting to hurt the Dolphins more than helping, because there was no Tyler Huntley in the game. It was Skylar Thompson playing in. Why is he a starting NFL quarterback? Someone please explain that. There were no interceptions between the 2 quarterbacks. Tim Boyle had some snaps as well, but it was just really nothing special. The leading receiver was Tyreek Hill, but he only had 3 catches for 40 yards, and the rushing game looked like complete ass. The whole offense looked like shit against the Seattle defense. And man, was it a reflection of why you needed to more than ever. But he suffered his 4th concussion in a couple of seasons, so you might not have him back for a long time. And then as far as the Seahawks goes, Geno Smith had a pretty decent game. He had 289 yards, 26-34, a touchdown, but 2 picks. Good grief. And he got sacked 3 times, but Skylar Thompson got sacked 5 times? What? Zach Charbonnet had a much better rushing game, 91 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And then DK Metcalf and Noah Fant led the team in receiving yards. DK Metcalf having 100 yards on 4 catches and a 71-yard touchdown. Noah Fant having a solid game with 6 catches for 60 yards. And Tyler Lockett even having 5 catches for 46 yards. It wasn't that great of a game for Seattle's offense, but they made it work. As far as Miami's defense, they did well. Zach Sealer got a sack and an interception. Kader Kohu had an interception. Sean Hand, Calais Campbell, Father Time himself having sacks. Jordan Brooks and Jordan Poyer having some solid games, tackling ball carriers as well. But it's just, the defense did its job. It's just the same old story with some of these teams. Defense does its job, but the offense just cannot capitalize on anything. Sadly for the Seahawks defense, they didn't get an interception, but Derek Hall had 2 sacks. Other people who had sacks were Jaron Reed, Boya Mafe, Draymond Jones, and Tyrell Dodson. Rayshawn Jenkins had a very good game as well, along with Tyrese Knight and Julian Love. But yeah, the offense just did enough. Zach Charbonnet had 2 touchdowns, and he had much better time rushing the ball because Dolphins apparently do not have a rush defense. And passing the ball, they were just looking comfortable for the most part. Metcalf really was the saving grace for that receiving core, and Seahawks dominated because the Dolphins' offense is just non-existent. Up next, we had the Detroit Lions traveling to State Farm Stadium in Glendale, to take on the Arizona Cardinals, and it was a very close game. 20-13, wasn't anything special, but it was overall a pretty solid game. This was going to be a very good game regardless. It's going to be a dogfight, but it was just, Lions just outlast the Cardinals at the end. For Detroit, it wasn't all bad. Jared Goff had 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He definitely had a way better game against Arizona than he did against Tampa Bay. I will say that much. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs still getting it done on the rushing game, combining for almost 200 rushing yards. Montar St. Brown is still here. 7 catches for 75 yards and a score. Very sure he had a receiving. Jahmyr Gibbs also had a catch for 20 yards and a touchdown. I guess he wasn't targeted, but he still caught the ball for a 20-yard touchdown. Guess that's how they did that. I don't know if it's a glitch or not, but he did get a catch for 20 yards and a score. David Montgomery having 100 yards and a rushing touchdown. Montar St. Brown also having a touchdown, 7 catches and 75 yards. And as for Arizona, Marvin Harrison is still here, and he is here to stay. Like, he's got 5 catches, 64 yards. 8 catches, 64 yards for Michael Wilson. Kyler Murray, 200 yards, a touchdown and interception. Not a terrible game from him. Rushing game was complete awful. It's just the passing game that really did anything. It just wasn't enough to beat the Lions. Like for the Lions defense, Kirby Joseph got the only interception of the game. Only sack was by Aiden Hutchinson. A little bit disappointing from the 4.5 sacks he had against Tampa Bay, but that's better said than done. Brian Branch and Carlton Davis also had some very solid games. And it was just they were able to set up the Lions to score some points, and they sure did. There at the end. Defense didn't do too much, but they did enough to help the offense get some points. I'm going to be honest, the Cardinals defense actually did a little bit better than the Lions defense, to be quite honest with you. Dennis Garrett get a pick, 2 sacks by Mac Wilson and Dante Stills. Kaiser White, Jalen Thompson having solid games along with Budda Baker and Murphy Bunting. And Cardinals offense just couldn't get it done. Like, defense set them up perfectly. They just couldn't capitalize on the Lions' mistakes, and Lions were able to capitalize on the Cardinals' mistakes at the end. Like, who could capitalize more on mistakes? It turned out to be the Lions, and they got a much-needed victory against Arizona. Up next, we have the Baltimore Ravens going to AT&T Stadium and almost choking the game away to the Dallas Cowboys. Why Baltimore? Why? Like, this game should not have even been this close. But yet, the Baltimore Ravens proved time and time again that games are not played on paper. Like, it was 28-6 at the end of the third quarter, and then the Cowboys scored 19 points and almost made a comeback. They needed a stop. They couldn't get it at the end. The main moral of the story with the Baltimore offense is that even though the passing game was okay, it wasn't anything that special. 200 yards almost and a touchdown for Jackson. The rushing game is where this team thrives on. Derrick Henry, 151 yards and 2 touchdowns on the game. Lamar Jackson even added a rushing touchdown himself. The main real receiving guy was Nelson Aguilar's 56-yard reception. And yeah, rushing game completely prevailed. And Dallas, once again, completely shot over the fact that they have allowed back-to-back games of just mind-boggling rushing games by the other team. And as far as Dallas goes, I mean, it was pretty much the opposite. Dak Prescott, 400 yards almost at 2 touchdowns. He did get sacked 3 times, though. Rushing game, complete shit. And then 6 catches, 95 yards for Ferguson. He had a very nice game in his first game, like fully healthy. CeeDee Lamb, 4 catches, 67 yards. Unfortunately, he did fumble the ball once. That really pissed me off. Like, my players have been turning the ball over for so much. Like, I don't understand what is going on. Like, I'm 0-3 in fantasy. Like, I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what it is, but I need to fix it immediately. But very nice game for the Cowboys on passing. I mean, Kavontae Turpin even had a receiving touchdown. Jalen Tolbert had a touchdown. Like, Dallas's offense looked solid on the passing game, but they just got into a hole they couldn't get out of. Obviously, not much to show here for the defense, except Kyle Van Noy of the Ravens got 2 sacks. Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith having double-digit tackles. And yeah, Kyle Van Noy was really the main spotlight of the game with 2 sacks. And it was just the offense was just holding onto the ball for a long time. They were able to take advantage of that. They were able to keep on pounding the rock, and the Cowboys couldn't do anything to stop that. As far as Dallas' defense, again, not much to talk about here. No sacks, no turnovers. The only guys really to talk about was Eric Kendricks, Kalen Carson, Trevon Diggs, DeMarvin Overshown, and Donovan Wilson having solid games. And yeah, defense of the Cowboys just couldn't do anything to stop any bit of rushing game that the Ravens had. Like, Ravens had the best rushing offense in the NFL, and it shows. And Dallas was just a prime example of why you really couldn't stop it if you really, really tried. And that was in a very key part in the Ravens beating the Cowboys in AT&T Stadium, but it doesn't excuse them from almost blowing that lead to the Cowboys. They could have easily won that game. In the final game of the Sunday 4 o'clock slate, oh my god, we had the Rams in SoFi Stadium upsetting the San Francisco 49ers on a last-second field goal, 27-24. San Francisco, are you serious? You had all of this hype just to lose to a team that had literally nobody to throw to, except for, I don't know, like, the thumbnails speak for itself. Like, I think I've seen people, like, say Matt Stafford won with, like, garbage truck drivers or something like that. I don't even know what exactly that was, but San Francisco, you lost to a team that had zero, like, talked about receivers on that team. Seriously? I mean, sure, Brock Purdy had 3 touchdowns and 300 yards. He got sacked once. He did lose a fumble, though. Rushing game, it wasn't as good as past weeks. How did the Niners lose to the Vikings, though? But then Jordan Mason, he had another solid game. But the main guy that I want to talk about is Jawan Jennings. He single-handedly handed me my 3rd L in a row in the first 3 weeks. He had 11 catches, 175 yards, and 3 touchdowns. If I'm not mistaken, he had 46 fantasy points as far as Yahoo goes. I'm not sure really what that calculates to in different like sites for fantasy football leagues, but man, that was just an absolute backbreaker for me. But man, what a game, Jawan Jennings. Go have yourself another one. As far as the Rams, like Stafford did pretty decently. Like, he played efficient ball, 200 yards, a touchdown, 16-25. He did get sacked 3 times, though. But, man, Kyren Williams, 24 carries, 89 yards, and 2 touchdowns was the main saving grace for the Rams. And receiving-wise, it was just Tutu Atwell just doing what he does best, 93 yards on 4 catches. Kyren Williams also had a receiving touchdown, so he was basically the entire offense, just like James Cook was in that Thursday night game in week 2. So, good on you, Kyren. Like, way to prove the haters wrong. Like, I wouldn't say that San Francisco's defense wasn't that bad. I mean, Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins, and Sam, I'm not going to pronounce that name. I'm going to butcher it. They all had sacks. Travarius Ward had 9 tackles. Fred Warner had 4 tackles. He wasn't too involved. He did have a pass deflection. I still believe he's the best middle linebacker in the NFL. Like, hands down. Like there's nobody better than him. Stop arguing about it. Hufanga had 7 tackles. Isaac Iadom had 6 tackles. Devontae Campbell had a solid game. Jair Brown had 2 pass deflections as well. It's just, defense did its job. Like, Niners did its job, but Rams just had a lot more fight in them, I guess. Obviously, only 1 sack for the Rams with Byron Young. 3 players, Quentin Lake, Troy Reader, Christian Roseboom with double-digit tackles. Like, defense was able to get it done, but Kyren Williams was the main player of the game for the Rams, and Niners just couldn't stop him. And great job, Rams. What an upset, especially at home. And here's the part I want to shoot myself in the foot right now. Sunday Night Football, Kansas City came to Mercedes-Benz Stadium and completely shattered our dreams, 22-17. If I hear that the refs screwed us again, I'm going to slap somebody. Because, sure, they made some bad calls, but we had several chances to win this game. If Raheem Morris would just take the damn field goal on 4th and 5, you have a kicker. It's a 24-yard attempt. What are you so scared about a field goal for, Raheem Morris? Like, stop listening to analytics. Can these coaches please just stop listening to analytics? Analytics is just bullshit. It's complete bullshit. Like, analytics is garbage. It's complete shit. Like, do what you want to do. If you want to kick a field goal, just do it. Just do it. If we kicked a field goal on that one drive, we wouldn't have had to run an outside zone on 4th and inches. We could have kicked the field goal, had a 1-point lead, maybe won the game, or Kansas City could have had to rely on Harrison Butker, Mr. Automatic, to win the game. Like, come on. Atlanta, seriously? You really hired Raheem Morris for this shit? Like, you have all this talent just to have a coach that looks like an idiot. Zach Robinson, what a terrible 4th and inches play call as well. This one's on you too. Mahomes, again, had a pretty solid game, but not much special. Like, he's supposed to be the best quarterback in the NFL, but I'm not seeing too much of that. 217 yards, 26 to 39, 2 touchdowns and a pick. He got sacked in no time at all. Chiefs offensive line, I guess you could say they were holding all game, but, we shot ourselves in our own foots. Carson Steele having a very solid game. We could not stop it for anything. 72 yards. And then Travis Kelce, another stinker. Like, why? Why do you have another stinker every now and then? And the only guy really to talk about on the receiving end was Rashee Rice. I still have him on my team, and he has been doing me a solid. This game, he had 12 catches, 110 yards, and a score. Like, Kirk Cousins, another solid game. He got sacked twice, sadly. He can't move around the pocket as much because of that Achilles injury. But he did play some efficient ball. 20 of 29, 200 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Rushing game, unfortunately, it was stuffed all game. Bijan Robinson had a rushing touchdown, but Drake London had 6 catches and 67 yards for a touchdown. Darnell Mooney with 8 catches and 66 yards. Oh boy. And Kyle Pitts, a 50-yard reception for a total of 2 catches and 59 yards. Like, we played a solid game. We just could not get it done because we wouldn't get the ball. For Kansas City's defense, Shamari Connor got the interception. It was like a batted ball, and it got tipped, intercepted by Connor. Jalen Watson had, I don't know what's going on with that glitch. But Enudike Uzama and Pennell had sacks. Connor had double-digit tackles. Bolton and Cook had some solid games. Bolton had 3 tackles for loss. He got hurt for like a couple plays, and then he came back in. When he went down, I thought that was a big thing, but he ended up coming back, and it was just all for nothing. Like, Kansas City defense, they played solid. Like, they had some mental mistakes, but at the end, Chiefs outlasted us. That's all I could say. The only things I really need to talk about is Justin Simmons. He is here. He is in Atlanta. He's going to stay here for quite some time. He got an interception. We couldn't get to Patrick Mahomes for anything. People are going to say, oh, the Chiefs' offensive line is holding. Yeah, no, shut up. We had so many chances to win this game, and we didn't take advantage of them. Troy Anderson and DeAndre Alford had double-digit tackles. Caden Ellis had a good game. So did Jesse Bates and Mike Hughes. Yeah, we had some quarterback hits. We couldn't sack them at all. If our lives depended on it, a lot of opportunities to win that game. We just blew it, just like we always do. Unfortunately, we're 1-2. Kansas City still in the field. Not much I can say except we lost the game. Not the refs. We did. The Falcons lost the game. And as you can tell, we had a doubleheader on Monday night. First up, we had Jacksonville Jaguars going to Buffalo and just letting the Buffalo Bills cook. 47-10 was the final score. It was like 34-0 and 34-3 at halftime. Yeah, the game was over by half, and people knew why. And Trevor Lawrence does not look great. Yeah, he looks like hot ass, and Josh Allen is still elite. Like, Trevor Lawrence had 178 yards. He was very highly inaccurate. 1 touchdown, 1 pick. He got sacked 4 times. Matt Jones had some playing time as well. He got sacked 1 time, went 5 of 8 for 22. 5 of 8 for 22 yards. I did say that right. Travis Etienne had a solid rushing game, like 6 yards a carry, but it was just not enough. Main real people to talk about is Christian Kirk on the receiving game and Brian Thomas. They had 13 catches for 127 yards, almost the entire passing game for the Jags. And as for Josh Allen, 4 touchdowns, 23 of 30 for 263. Man, wow. Like, rushing game, it wasn't great, but James Cook and Ray Davis both had touchdowns. Josh Allen had 44 rushing yards, but man, 4 touchdowns to 4 different receivers. Ty Johnson had a touchdown. Khalil Shakir, 6 catches, 72 yards, a touchdown. James Cook even had 4 catches for 48 yards. Kincaid, 3 catches for 41 yards and touchdown. And Keon Coleman, a catch for a 24-yard score. Like, Bills just scored at will. Jacksonville just couldn't stop them. Yeah, and speaking of that, like, players that I'm really impressed with, I would suppose, is Jeremiah Ledbetter, Monteric Brown, Chad Muma, Antonio Johnson, and Ventrell Miller. Antonio Johnson. Why did I say Antonio? What? Anyways, yeah, 3 pass deflections by Foye Luokun, Cisco, and Miller. Yeah, they just couldn't stop the Bills at any point. Like, offense just made too many mistakes. Defense gets fatigued. That's what can happen. You guys can get blown out, and your defense starts to get fatigued, and the defense just breaks apart, and there's nothing you can do. And referring to the Bills' defense, DeMar Hamlin got his first interception in his NFL career. What a full circle moment for him. And he also had 2 pass deflections. He had a solid game. 5 players had a sack, including Von Miller, Jamarcus Ingram, who completely dismantled the Dolphins, AJ Epineza, Casey Hill, and Javon Solomon, with Dorian Williams having another spectacular game. My goodness, 11 tackles on the game. Cam Lewis had 8 tackles, and Baylon Spector had 6. Yeah, so Dorian Williams has been solid. So is DeMar Hamlin, Von Miller, Jamarcus Ingram. Like, those are the 4 main players I'm looking at right now for the Bills defense. Now I'm saying those 4 guys are going to be the reason why the Bills defense is still pretty solid all around. Like, Bills just dominated both sides. Jacksonville is just in shambles. Doug Pearson might be on his way out. And finally, we had the highest scoring game of the week. We had the Washington Commanders going to Cincinnati and stunning the Cincinnati Bengals. Like I said before, Jaden Daniels is here, and he is him. Oh boy. All hell's about to break loose. I mean, what an offensive showing from both quarterbacks. Like, between the two, they had 600 yards almost and 5 touchdowns each. They both got set twice. But yeah, the passing game has been pretty solid. First off, the Commanders' rushing game, like, they had 3 different players get touchdowns on the ground. Eckler had a 24-yard touchdown, Daniels had a rushing touchdown, and Brian Robinson had a rushing touchdown. The main guy to really watch out for on the receiving end, the main 2 guys in my opinion, were Terry McLaurin and Luke McCaffrey. McLaurin had 100 receiving yards, a 55-yard reception, 4 catches, and a touchdown. I saw the 1 touchdown he had, and my goodness, that was impressive. Whew. Oh yeah, and also got big man touchdown. Trenton Scott got a receiving touchdown. Luke McCaffrey had 3 catches for 44 yards, including a 30-yard reception that looked very nice on film. As far as the Bengals offense goes, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Like I said before, rushing game was a lot better. 62 yards for Chase Brown and Zach Moss with 58 yards and a touchdown. Jamar Chase is back. 6 catches, 118 yards and 2 touchdowns. T. Higgins had a couple receptions. I don't think he's 100%. And then Andre Iosivas had a touchdown with 5 catches, 52 yards. Don't forget Mike Gesicki with 4 catches, 47 yards. Respect your tight ends, people. It was just pretty much an offensive shootout. Like, the defense just couldn't stop him for anything. Like, John Baptiste had a sack. Armstrong and Fowler combined for a sack. Bobby Wagner had 8 tackles. He had a good game. Luvu had a good game. So did Quan Martin, Mike Sainristel, and Sage Just even had 6 tackles on the game. And yeah, it was just 2 sacks, 3 pass deflections for the Commanders' defense. And the Bengals' defense was no different. Hendrickson had a sack, and then Zachary Carter and Jay Tufele combined for a sack, and then Von Bell, Jermaine Pratt, and Logan Wilson had 9 tackles each. And there was also Pratt with a forced fumble, but to no avail. It was just an offensive shootout, and the Commanders came out on top, surprisingly. Man, Bengals are also in shambles. They are 0-3. Commanders look like they have just found their franchise quarterback. Well done, Commanders. Nice win on primetime. Oh yeah, and before I forgot to put this in the last episode, but I'm going to be doing my college game day pick. It's going to be in Tuscaloosa, most likely. If they don't pick this game for college game day, whoever's running that needs to be fired, because this is a top 5 showdown between 2 SEC juggernauts, Georgia and Alabama. Let me tell you, this is going to be a great game. I think these 2 were of the 3 top contenders in the SEC to go to Atlanta. Alabama, they they're both coming off of bye weeks. Alabama may have had it worse if Georgia didn't completely shit the bed against Kentucky and just held on for a 1-point win. Like, Alabama struggled for 3 quarters against South Florida and then decided to wake up in the 4th quarter. I've talked about that before. That was pathetic. And then Georgia, 13-12. This was one of your worst showings in almost a decade. How in the world are you going to let Kentucky hold you to only 13 points? Aren't you supposed to be a top team in the country? Yeah, that game really did send you back to number 2. As far as my pick here, it's going to be a little bit hard to decide between the two. But since they're coming from bye weeks, they're going to be refreshed. They're going to be recalibrated. They're going to be reset just in time when they play each other. And I believe the Georgia Bulldogs will get it done against Kalen DeBoer. If it was against Nick Saban, I would 100% say Alabama. But Kirby Smart has not played Kalen DeBoer in his coaching career, I guess. I don't think he has. I don't think Georgia has played Washington when he was their coach. But this is the first time that Kalen DeBoer will be an Alabama head coach playing Kirby Smart. This will be his toughest test by far. Whoever wins this game, I guarantee you they will have the best win so far in college football. And I say Georgia wins this game. And that is going to do it for this episode of Grizzly Talks Football. I forgot to say about that. My apologies. But yeah, that's going to do it for that episode. If you loved this video, be sure to give it a like. Don't forget to hit the red subscribe button. Why still haven't you done that? Like, just go ahead and click it. And also click the bell so you don't miss an episode. And until next time, I will see you tomorrow for Week 4 NFL predictions. Peace.